Welcome back. It's been a while, a few weeks, but this is episode 7. As the title may have revealed, have some exciting news. Maybe you've seen my Twitter, but we will be diving into all of it. I've joined a Japanese public company to implement a Bitcoin standard. My official title is Director of Bitcoin Strategy. Evidently, I will still be doing these videos, and I still have a very large Swiss Army knife role with Bitcoin Magazine. All things media, analysis, just kind of really anything that comes at me with Bitcoin Mag. But this has been in the works with MetaPlanet, Japanese listed, Tokyo Stock Exchange listed company, for about a month. I hinted at it in previous videos, but we will be discussing that today. It's been a busy few weeks. The last time we talked was the Samurai news had come out, and a few Lightning providers had left the US, and it was a bit more of a somber conversation. Shortly after that video, I headed out to Vegas for a MicroStrategy Bitcoin for Corporations event. And then subsequently went to Hong Kong and Tokyo. So I've been all over the place, and it's why I haven't done a video. Because I was waiting to share some things, and then also just was too busy with travel. And right now I'm actually home at my parents' for Memorial Day, a long Memorial Day week. So decided I would come out, rip out a video, and kind of give you guys the latest. So before we get into the swing of things fully, I would just kindly ask, if you enjoy this stuff, if you enjoy this video, maybe you watch it before, and you can decide then. But I would really appreciate a like on the YouTube, a subscription. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're on Twitter, the link is in the bio or underneath the original tweet to go to my channel and sub, and I would really very much appreciate it. And if not, no worries. Secondly, just want to give a big shout out to Theya Bitcoin. They have been killing it. Theya is absolutely shipping. They had their launch week, I think a week or two back, where they released a killer suite of new products, and just they ship at an unbelievable pace. And Smeet just actually posted this. Smeet, co-founder of Theya, unbelievable growth over the last couple months. You love to see it. So Theya, for those of you that don't know, modular multi-sig. They have one key, you have two keys. You can plug in any sort of key. It can be a mobile key, it can be hardware wallets, any kind of hardware wallet, and they continue to add functionality and new capabilities and features, and functionality in more and more hardware wallets. So Theya's killing it. I appreciate them powering this YouTube channel, powering in my nascent YouTube channel. Still very much in the works and still very much looking to improve. So shout out to Theya, and you should check them out, theya.us or theya.us/Dylan. But either way, it's just on the iPhone app. Give them a look. All right, so let's get back to business. As I said previously, the start of May, I went out to Vegas with the Bitcoin Magazine team, three or four of us, for the MicroStrategy Bitcoin for Corporations event. The first 2 days of the event were their business intelligence conference, MicroStrategy World. Then it was the Bitcoin for Corporations. I didn't know, I was there for the first day, or the second day. The day prior to the Bitcoin for Corporations event, it was the second day of their MicroStrategy World Conference. I was there and I didn't really recognize too many people. Some Bitcoin people were there a day early, but really a who's who of companies in attendance. Just looking at people's name cards, all the big tech companies, companies in the Dow Jones, the SP 500. I mean, MicroStrategy has, again, a business intelligence and an AI software that they offer enterprise. So there was very much a new, interesting crowd. A lot of suits, a lot of collared shirts. Some of which you don't see that sort of outfit, at least with the prominence you did at Bitcoin events. But for MicroStrategy World, it certainly was. But after that, the Bitcoin for Corporations event was fantastic. MicroStrategy did a fantastic job. More familiar faces there. I talked with some of the people from their team, They were very gracious hosts. And also just some of the speakers there, David Marcus from Lightspark, and many of the guys from Fidelity and Bitwise, just talking about the crazy start to the year Bitcoin's had in terms of institutional adoption. And so it was really exciting. Simultaneously, I wish I could have attended, but B++ was happening, I believe, in Texas, and there was a ton of exciting developments on the Bitcoin development front. So a lot of stuff was happening that week. There was this was a funny meme that came from the event. Shout out to Mike Germano, president of Bitcoin Magazine, for posting this. Well, what did we talk about? Well, we talked about. What did we talk about? Well, of course, we talked about which one's the best crypto asset. Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. For those that are unaware, that's the interstellar sailor meme. Joking around there, but we had a good conversation. I picked Michael's brain on a few things for a few minutes, and it was always great to hear his opinion on things. Talked with a few members of their team for much longer, and always insightful to hear from what they were doing. After the MicroStrategy event, I took a brief stop in the East Coast and then jetted over to Hong Kong for the Bitcoin Asia conference. There was 5,000 or so people there. Palpable energy. Hong Kong ETFs just rolled out. I'm an American. I've grown up in the U.S. my entire life. I've just started to travel recently, but it was my first time in Asia. So I've been to Europe and, traveled. I would say I've fairly well traveled, but I've never been to Asia, so maybe not. And in terms of the Bitcoin scene there, very interesting. Look, I spend all day, every day, immersed in the Bitcoin scene, and Eastern and Western Bitcoin culture and the scene is just very different. There's overlap, of course, some of the big mining companies and all of that, but there's far less ideological. There's far less ideological maximalism in Asia. It's more just everybody loves Bitcoin, of course, but a bit more of just however you can make a bag, which, right? I mean, I'm indifferent. I respect, right? I understand everybody doesn't see eye to eye with the things I look at and how I see the world and how a Westerner may see the world. But it was interesting, right? There, I spend all day, every day in this space, and I hadn't heard of half the companies. So I met a lot of very interesting people. Saw plenty of old friends as well. It was great to catch up. And yeah, 5,000 people there. It was a massive turnout. It was fantastic. Hong Kong's fun. First time, obviously. But from there, I guess shout out to Romolo. My speech was, I would say it was pretty mediocre. But he says it's the best speech in Bitcoin Asia. So, admittedly, I was procrastinating a bit. So, I should have practiced a little bit more, or at least practiced. I didn't. I just slapped together a slide deck and ripped it. So, I think that's recorded somewhere. I'm not sure. But yeah, and then from there I went to Tokyo. And so this is where I think it gets a bit fun. Before we really dig in, I just want to preface this with first, these opinions that I am going to disclose are my own. They don't reflect they don't necessarily reflect those of MetaPlanet. This podcast is for informational purposes, not financial advice. Consult a financial advisor for any investment decisions. Secondly, along those lines, information I talk about in the next half of this show is all public. It's all publicly disclosed information. There is nothing not published or not public that we'll be discussing. We have laid everything out already. So just kind of going over it, and so let's dig in. As said previously, I've joined MetaPlanet, a Tokyo Stock Exchange company, as director of Bitcoin strategy. MetaPlanet, previously Red Planet, was an Asian commercial real estate company, 30 or so properties across Japan and Thailand. Acquired the ticker, acquired the public vehicle in the 2010s range. I think like 2015, 2017. I should know that, but and was running the business until through COVID. COVID was very rough, obviously, for the hospitality industry. And so MetaPlanet sold a majority of its hotels and assets to another public company in Japan, leaving it with one hotel. They cleaned the balance sheet, consolidated the balance sheet, cleared off all of the debt. And because the other public company purchased it, they didn't want a second publicly traded vehicle or ticker. So Simon Garifich, the CEO, who I just met in Tokyo this past week, brilliant guy, former Goldman Sachs derivatives trader, real estate, has been kind of dabbling in crypto the past few years and is recently very, very deeply orange pilled. We had a fantastic few days together, and I had obviously talked previously for hours on end before I decided to come take a role here. So what are we doing? The company is not the largest in the world, far from it. It's actually quite small currently. They have one hotel. The hotel has no debt, spits off cash flow. They had a few $1 million on their balance sheet and no strategic plan. Kind of is a waiting game for the past year. Long story short, connected through Sora Ventures, Mark Yusko, UTXO, management. I met with a company. This is something they had been mulling, but decided to fully go pivot towards being a Bitcoin accumulation, a corporate Bitcoin strategy, essentially a corporate Bitcoin standard. And so the entire business is now geared towards this. It's a public operating company in Japan, so it's traded common stock, MetaPlanet, ticker 3350. It's performed actually quite well since the adoption of the Bitcoin standard, and as publicly disclosed, they currently hold an okay but not extremely significant 117 Bitcoin, purchased in yen terms. And so obviously that's not large. The companies have approximately started at $20 million at the start of the strategy. It's now $35 million. But I guess this is more the layout here of what we're looking at. So this is a disclosure from April, basically announcing the record date for the EGM. The next extraordinary general meeting of shareholders is to be held in June. During that meeting, the agenda items are expected to include the appointment of new directors as well as the increase of authorized share capital to allow the company to offer additional shares over time in order to further increase Bitcoin holdings. So right now it's a bit of a waiting period. The plan is to be extremely advantageous and aggressive with the Bitcoin accumulation. So if you looked, and this is on Twitter, if you go to MetaPlanet and you just click here, this is a white paper that I wrote, of course in coordination with the company, but mainly myself crafted and put together with the C-suite on our thesis. It covers the macro situation in Japan. It covers the problems that exist with the yen and the financial repression environment. It also talks about the strategic rationale for Bitcoin adoption. Mainly, the yen continues to weaken. Bitcoin is a non-sovereign store of value, and that has and may continue to appreciate against traditional fiat currencies. Speculative arbitrage potential. So this is not an ETF. There are no ETFs in Japan. There are no Bitcoin proxies in Japan. So one of the reasons that we decided to go through with this is that we are looking to provide Japanese investors with Bitcoin exposure in equity markets. The tax regime in Japan is very hostile to crypto assets broadly, very much less so for equity securities. The tax regime is approximately 50% for crypto and 20% for 20 to 30% for equity securities. Again, not tax advice or financial advice. You can go look this all up as shown in the disclosure here. This is solely information, not a solicitation of investments. But the real thing that we're aiming to do is have a Bitcoin proxy as an operating company. Mainly, the core idea is that interest rates in Japan for the 10-year debt are under 1%. In the U.S., it's 4.5%, 4% and change. So the goal right now, about 20% of the balance sheet, just on the publicly available data, what we have disclosed here, and also total shares outstanding. Total shares outstanding as a Bitcoin as a percentage of the total market cap is about 20%. The goal is to get that as high as possible. And the rationale is, one, there is no Bitcoin proxy in Japan, and two, we are very much, again, this is not any new information. As stated here, MetaPlanet intends to use its incumbent cash reserves and excess cash flows from asset holdings to execute strategic currency arbitrage, acquiring Bitcoin through the issuance of long-dated yen liabilities when the opportunity arises. In particular, the convertible note market is one where we plan to be very active. So right now, obviously, waiting period. There is the authorized shares will be enabled or unlocked after the shareholder meeting, the EGM, as disclosed. And until that time, we're somewhat sitting and being patient. But I think it's really, people have graciously said, compared this to the MicroStrategy model. Let me be clear. MicroStrategy has 214,000 Bitcoin. They're a $20 billion company that started at a $1 billion company. We are honored to be compared to a giant. We are nowhere near that size. We don't have a business intelligence software unit that produces tens of millions of dollars in net income. But the strategy, the stated strategy, and the strategy we're looking to execute is similar. A Bitcoin proxy as an operating company in an extremely liquid equity market and with a large bond market, with a currency, the yen, that is at near 30-year lows against the dollar. Why? Well, mainly, aside from equity issuance to buy more Bitcoin, to get that Bitcoin exposure closer to 100% of the balance sheet, the convertible note market is one where we are very much watching closely. Why? I don't think many people understand how MicroStrategy can borrow at zero. It's not because bond market investors love Saylor or they're a big fan of the podcasts, of which I am. And I think Michael's great. Obviously, as I've done the whole second episode was on their strategy. But it's not very well understood how MicroStrategy borrows for 7 years at 60 basis points. So I'll walk you through it. People say that Saylor and MicroStrategy are so unbelievably risky because of how volatile Bitcoin is and how volatile MicroStrategy is, right? So not only do they have 100% of their assets or balance sheet in Bitcoin, they have over 100%. They have debt liabilities and Bitcoin on their balance sheet. They have, let's say, 120% or 110% of their balance sheet in Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin's trading at 60 then 60 volatility, 60% annual volatility, then MicroStrategy is 80. Or if Bitcoin's trading at like 80, MicroStrategy is 100 or 120. MicroStrategy was up 10% today, and Bitcoin was up less than that, right? So people say that's so risky, right? Saylor, you're a madman, and make no mistake, Saylor and MicroStrategy got tarred and feathered for 3 years for this, for two years and change. But now the strategy is very much proven. And while there are other public entities that have Bitcoin exposure, there is not any that have been even remotely as aggressive. For instance, Square has 9,000 Bitcoin, which is significant, right? 9,000 Bitcoin is a lot of Bitcoin. It's almost 90. That's like 90 times more than MetaPlanet has. But Square is a $50 billion business. So as a percent of their balance sheet, the Bitcoin is somewhat irrelevant. But just bear with me here. If you're thinking about options, right? If you're looking at, if you know vaguely how options work, right? You have stock that's trading. You have call options, put options. Calls are a right to buy the stock at a certain fixed price at a certain time. Puts are the right to sell a stock at a certain price at a certain up until a certain point of time. If you have far out of the money calls and far out of the money puts on a stock that barely moves, that's not volatile, say it has 10 vol, the options really aren't worth anything. They're barely worth anything. But if you crank the vol up, if you really crank that volatility to 20%, 50%, 100%, just the way options math works, one of the key inputs or variables in options modeling is implied volatility, realized volatility. You can look at realized volatility as somewhat of a proxy. So in that case, you have the options are extremely valuable for a hyper volatile stock. So the reason that the MicroStrategy can borrow at zero, when with the 10-year at 4.5% in the US, MicroStrategy borrows for 7 at 60 basis points. How? Because they offer an option in the form of an equity conversion, 30 or 40% higher than the stock was trading when they issued the bond. So let's say, for easy math, the stock's trading at $100. I know that's not the actual price. Or we could say $1,000, and they'll say, okay, we're going to borrow at zero, but if the stock goes to $1,400, you can convert that into equity. And so these bond investors, they're not Bitcoin fans. They might be, but they're not along for the ride. They're purely looking at the data, purely plugging in a number and saying, oh, the stock's up or down 10% in a day, so let's assign X probability that this converts, right? So who would lend money at zero? It's not about that. It's about the optionality of the conversion of a hyper volatile equity. So while MetaPlanet is obviously very, very small currently, we hope and think that will very quickly change. And the balance sheet exposure is small currently, 20%. We plan to rapidly increase that. With that, we'll be exploring all options available at our disposal in the debt markets. With basically the end goal of providing equity investors in Japan and internationally. You can buy this on specific brokerages if you'd like. Again, not a solicitation, just it's a reality, just information. But the goal of providing Japanese investors with a Bitcoin proxy in equity markets, and also providing in debt markets, which especially in Japan we view a sort of fixed income instrument, such as a convertible note with basically Bitcoin upside, Bitcoin as a Bitcoin proxy. We think that our view is that there's basically an insatiable demand for that instrument. So that's the plan. Secondly, with that being said, this is not a crypto strategy. This is not a digital asset strategy. This is not this is a Bitcoin strategy. And we clearly lay this out. So if you read the white paper, this is, again, it's somewhat surreal for me, because I've been writing this stuff just on Twitter and posting this on YouTubes and podcasts for the last few years. This document is an official disclosure on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. So this was sent out on the Tokyo Stock Exchange portal in English and Japanese. So this is nothing new. It's not new information. The Tokyo Stock Exchange approved this to be sent out. This is our white paper. So MetaPlanet is committed to utilizing the entire range of capital market instruments to strategically bolster its Bitcoin reserves. This method not only fortifies the company's balance sheet against perpetual debasement of the yen, but also positions MetaPlanet as a Bitcoin-focused investment vehicle globally. The strategy not only leverages a Bitcoin-centric approach, but also harnesses Japan's unmatched global cost of capital advantage, amplifying the company's competitive edge internationally. So, I don't know, we're going to look at everything. The goal is more Bitcoin. And is it the biggest company in the world? No, it's not. But one, we're excited to execute this in a market that we think sorely needs it. Two, one company, one visionary MicroStrategy is an outlier, an oddity. We hope two can help spark a trend. So we're fully committed. We're not going to go halfway in. We're not half committed to this. This is the strategy. So I don't really know how what else there is to say in this regard. But we will be active. And you will see everything first through the Tokyo Stock Exchange disclosure system. It'll be posted to the MetaPlanet website, the MetaPlanet.jp, the MetaPlanet Twitter, MetaPlanet_JP, and I will be sharing updates periodically as we go. And while the Treasury is a work in progress at 117 Bitcoin currently, we expect to bolster this significantly. That's the plan. So, as stated in our in all of our disclosures, right? If the agenda items: increase authorized share capital to allow the company to offer additional shares over time to further increase its Bitcoin holdings. So, we are having some very good conversations, and we are excited for the future. So I think that's that. I mean, I have a few more. Just here's debt to GDP. This is like 2014, so it's gotten way worse since then. Japan's at 260% debt to GDP. It's the worst in all of the world, if not all the world. G7 by far. The yen has performed terribly against the dollar, and they need financial repression more so than the U.S. The U.S.'s bond market's in a bad spot. The U.S. needs inflation over interest rates for a long period of time. Japan is even worse, and their demographic picture is even worse. So we think Bitcoin is sorely needed in Japan. It was part of the reason for the strategic rationale of this decision was that we think Japanese investors, equity investors, bond investors, but particularly for focusing on the equity component right now, sorely need this would be very much in demand is part of the thinking. So we'll see if that's proven. We'll see if hindsight proves, if hindsight looks upon us well or not, or said differently, said that weird. If this works, we'll see. But we're feeling very good. And the last month has been good. It's obviously a small start, so not all that impressive, but the initial reaction has been positive for this. So, yeah, that's what I've been working on. Again, I still will be. I'm still working with Bitcoin Magazine. Got the Nashville conference coming up in I think 69 days, if I saw that correctly today. So I will be in Nashville this summer in July. Get your tickets. I need a discount code. I should probably have one, but yeah, it's gonna be an exciting summer. We got a lot coming down the pipe. Bitcoin Magazine and also myself will continue cranking these videos, and also, we'll hopefully have some exciting developments coming out of Tokyo. So that's that. We've been going for 30 minutes. I think it's good there. All right, perfect, cool. Well, I will upload this probably tomorrow, and we will talk soon again. So Please like, subscribe, go to the YouTube if you haven't. Would very much appreciate a sub. And shout out to the sponsors, Theya Bitcoin, Theya.us, for powering the show. Peace and love. Talk soon.